Hey, aloha. This is Umi. I'm trying something a little bit different, kind of like the first week. I'm trying out a video instead of a PowerPoint. Uh, and this video is mainly going to focus on Karl Marx. And I'm going to keep it fairly short. I had mentioned that in the announcement that I sent out earlier today. And I had noticed in the chapter that there was a pretty lengthy section on Karl Marx, so I'm going to focus on that. I might do the first video on Karl Marx and then a second video on Adam Smith as a way of comparing and contrasting the two. Okay, so, and first I apologize for any repetition from last week, the earlier lecture on Marx that had a section on Marx, but as a teacher I don't see repetition as a bad thing. It's pretty essential to remembering things. So I apologize. I should go a fair amount deeper on this lecture than I did in the previous one. Okay, so Karl Marx was a German Jew who ended up living mainly in England, and he is, by some accounts, one of the most influential people in history, certainly among the very, very most influential in the last 1.5 to 2 centuries. Most people say this because at one point about a third of the world was living under Marxist regimes, communist regimes that were based on the ideas of Karl Marx. So just very briefly, Marx was, as a young person, what they called a young Hegelian. So coming out of Hegel's philosophy, he, in the debate over mind and matter, he ended up taking the side of matter. And it's what we call materialism. Marx forwarded a theory of historical materialism. He saw that it was production of goods for market, that is the main human activity, not the production of ideas. And ideas are formed within those relations of production. Okay, so that's part of Hegel's influence on Marx. And Hegel's ideas were interpreted in multiple ways, and the left Hegelians and the right Hegelians. Marx was a left Hegelian. Marx saw the mode of production as being the main process that shapes social life. That his idea of the way to liberation was to put the control of the means of production into the hands of the workers. And by the means of production, we're talking about factories, basically. This was the early, not so early, middle, moving towards the middle point of the Industrial Revolution. And again, ideas and ideologies are shaped by those modes of production. So we find that philosophy often follows economics. One of Marx's critiques of capitalism, and Marxism is a critique of capitalism, was that because of the division of labor, people who did one very small piece of a larger task become very much alienated from the ultimate product of what they produce. So as opposed to the prior mode of production, which was craftsmen, a craftsman builds a product from start to finish and can see the finished product and has the pride of knowing that they were responsible for that entire product. I've actually had a small amount of carpentry that I've done, and I have myself felt that pride for the very simplest of things. Whereas imagine that you are in a car factory and you're putting 4 bolts on each car as they go by you in the assembly line. That is the final product. You don't feel that kind of sense of ownership of. So you're alienated from the final product. And so your task starts to lose meaning. Marx is against capitalism, but not entirely. He's not entirely against it. What he says is that capitalism is a phase which you go through, which a society, an advanced society goes through in order to reach the next phase of communism. Now, in the book it made some sarcastic remarks, as usual, about communist, about Marx, that he would be compared to somebody with a mask made of human skin, and it had these remarks about the North Korean restaurant, which is called something like the glorious carcass pucks of eternal wonderfulness. The joke there is that in very extreme communist societies like North Korea, the reality is very, very, very harsh. So they're eating basically stripped carcasses. That's the reference to the carcasses. But you're supposed to pretend that they're eternally wonderful, and they're all from the glorious leader, provided by the glorious leader. And that's what that crazy name of the restaurant was a reference to in the reading. So the big problem with Marxism has always been the disparity between the theory and the actual practice. The theory said that advanced societies will go through capitalism and then have a communist revolution and then move into communism. And the form of governance in communism would be workers' guilds, that the workers would form small groups, and those groups would govern. But the reality of every communist revolutions did happen. Cuba, North Korea, which split Korea into two, Vietnam, which split Vietnam into two, China, 1950, the Cultural Revolution, and then most famously 1917, the Russian Revolution. In every case, instead of workers' guilds, they've had a very long-serving dictator. So in Russia, we had Stalin. In Cuba, you had Castro. In North Korea, you had Kim Il-sung, the grandfather of the current leader, Kim Jong-un. Even in Yugoslavia, you had Tito, and there's virtually no exception to this dictatorship that's linked with communism. There seems to be some kind of reality that in order to get people to subscribe to this idea of everybody shares the wealth, you have to have some kind of major suppressive mechanism. Okay, so in summary, there are a number of critiques of communism. I'm running out of time, so I might put those in the next video. So I don't know if I'm gonna record this next video tonight or tomorrow. Okay, so I will see you next time.